Are we ready to start?
Yeah, I think we are good.
Everything's good. Our system go.
Just
Adi?
double check with Nino.
Okey, semua okey. Boleh start.
Boleh start ya? Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the FRSB Wacana Series 4. Maybe I just want to say a little bit, the Faculty of Design and Architecture have this series of seminar where they share their expertise and knowledge together with the community, and this is the fourth in the series of the Wacana FRSB. And I'd like to thank you everyone for joining this afternoon. And we are going to discuss a topic which is, if not closest to your heart, it's very close to my heart. Yeah, so let's start. First of all, I'm sure you heard, especially if you are in Malaysia and a Malaysian, people will say that dari mata terus ke hati, right? From the eye straight to the heart. Or if you watch old Malay movies, they would say jauh di mata, di hati jangan, you know. You can be far from the eyes, but not from the heart. Okay, so what we are discussing this afternoon has something to do with the eyes. The main topic will be the visual resource management. And if you have seen the title of the discussion, it's very catchy, Beauty and the Environment, a case for visual resource management. But before I get into that, maybe just an introduction before I introduce the distinguished speakers for petang ni, for today. 90% of environmental information that we get, say the scientists, are from the eyes, through the eyes. And the brain understands visual field in less than 1/10 of a second. That's how fast our visual sense is in processing information for our survival. Okay, as compared to hearing and other senses. Then the next fact is that 40% of the nerve fibers are linked to the retina. That's almost half, right? 40%. And finally, the eyes only see what the mind is able to comprehend. This last statement will be discussed further by Dr. Suhardi and Dr. Chul because it's part of the environmental preference and perception. Okay, I hope if not today, then I think they will discuss it at a later date. Okay, the next thing is for me to introduce our distinguished speaker. Let me start with the first speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Suhardi Maulan. Dr. Suhardi Maulan is the Associate Professor in the Faculty of Design and Architecture, University Putra, Malaysia. I'm sure many of you are quite familiar with him. He's the Dean of the Faculty of Design and Architecture, and also the current President of the Institute of Landscape Architecture or Landscape Architect Malaysia. He obtained his MLA from the University of Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, the USA, and also his doctoral degree in environmental design and planning is also from the Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University in the US. I'm not going to go into his very long detail. He might want to add later on. But the most interesting thing is that his research interests include people interaction with the built environment to support sustainable development and visual quality assessment, green sustainable building, design and assessments, and post-occupancy valuation. Interesting. He has done a number of consultancy works related to landscape planning and design, as well as scientific studies about people, environment, behavior, and visual quality. Okay, so that gives a very good background to our first speaker in visual resource management, assessment, and so on. Now, our next distinguished speaker is LAR Dr. Samsul Abu Bakar. He's currently a senior lecturer in the Landscape Architecture Department, Faculty of Design and Architecture in the Institute of Asia. What else? He's a corporate member of the Institute of Landscape Architects. And here, a very interesting fact, he's an associate member of the Faculty of Design and Architecture Visual Assessment and Management Laboratory. Wow. And who's the head of this laboratory? Is it Dr. Sohardi or... Yeah, Dr. Shun?
Sesuadi lah tu.
Oh, Dr. Sohardi is the head of the laboratory. His research interests include visual resource assessment, visual pollution, memorial landscape, GIS, and eye tracking analysis. In 2015, Dr. Shamsul, or more popularly known as Dr. Shun, won the Excellent Research Award from ILAM in recognition of his eye tracking research project. It's very, very interesting. Okay, he is also a visual impact assessment consultant for a number of projects in the Klang Valley. Among them is the Klang Valley MRT line, Selayang Link, Kelana Jaya line, capacity expansion, Singapore High Speed Rail project, visual quality of Taman Negara. In addition to that, he's also involved in a number of projects while he was in the United States. And maybe he could elaborate on that when he gives the talk later on. Okay, what else did I miss? Well, I think that's it. Okay, so I guess all of you are very interested to hear what these two guests would like to say about visual resource management. And so I would like to invite first Associate Professor Dr. Suhadi Maulan to give just an introduction, perhaps nothing very heavy, go light on it, and perhaps Dr. Shamsul will continue in a little bit more detail, and then we'll come back to Dr. Suhadi a bit later on. So please, everyone, just relax, have a cup of coffee and some goreng pisang or goreng keladi, and let's enjoy their presentation. My job here is to be the referee. If anybody talk too long and the time is running out, I have to mute all of them, you know. And then there is also, besides on Webex, I was told that it's also on Facebook Live, right? And those of you who follow on Facebook Live, if you have any question and answer, I think you would communicate in the usual manner. And those who follow Webex, you can go to the chat and post some questions. We're gonna put the question and answer towards the end of the talk. Okay. So with that, I would like to invite Associate Professor Dr. Suhadi Maulan to start a little bit of the discussion as a warm-up. Please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Mus, for the very fine introduction of me. All right, and to all of you, welcome to Wacanareka FRSB number 4. I think this is my turn today, and Dr. Samsul to give a little bit insight related to the visual resource management. Okay, visual resource is something that very dear to our heart, I guess, especially to those involved in the landscape architecture works, right? Because we are dealing with the visual all the time, visual elements, visual quality all the time. But in addition to that, we also deal with a lot of aesthetic. When we design aesthetic always be at the back of our mind, right? To ensure that whatever we do actually have certain aesthetic value. So that is why visual resource management is very important to landscape architecture field, planning, geography, architectures, environmental, and so forth. Meaning that whoever deal with the build with the natural environment as well as the built environment have to take care of the visual quality. But nevertheless, beside the importance of the visual quality, and as Dr. Mus said, 90% of our time actually we make decision regarding to the visual quality, because we have in our everyday life we have to see first, then from there we will make judgment. So that is how important actually the visual environment. But many of us not really aware the importance of it. When I first start this research field, uh, it is not really surprising, but in Malaysia, the issue regarding the visual quality is not really a main topic in relation to the development. So it's still not really the main concern of any development. I'm not talking about the aesthetic or the development itself, but how to manage the existing visual resources that we have, right? So and for the for the last, I think, 20 years, nation have gone through a very rapid development, and I think for the first part, we don't have any issue so much related to the visual environment. But as we move on to more urbanized situation, and a lot of development and redevelopment happen. So the issue of visual resource management becoming more and more important. So and furthermore, uh, as many of our city expanding uh, toward the countryside, so the issue of the visual environment also becoming more important, uh, because I'm not saying that the development is not beautiful, but how actually it compatible with the existing visual resources? That is the main question that need to be asked. So, my research on the visual quality, all right, and the visual preference have give us a lot of understanding about what people prefer, right? For example, we know that people prefer scene with water, scene with trees, right? Scene that people can afford to do something in it, right? So, but this gives us insight on how actually or what actually the scene or the environment that people like or prefer. But the question is that we can provide that to the design that we have, that we plan, okay, design that we want to build. But the question is that how to manage the existing visual resource is another story, right? Be it in the urban area and be it in the natural area. So, for example, uh, when we Malaysia actually decided to build all this infrastructure, for example, the highways, the mass rapid transit line, bus rapid transit line, LRT, and so forth. The line actually going through uh, many type of landscape character, and some of these landscape character have very beautiful characteristic. But how are we going to manage uh, or to make sure that the development of this infrastructure does not actually disturb or destroy the existing visual quality? So, and the existing visual quality actually is very important because uh, if it is beautiful or if it is have very high aesthetic value, because people always have attachment to it, right? And most of the time they are become our landmarks, all right, our wayfinding, okay, and we have some kind of personal relationship with them, and suddenly the visual quality changed, and we can see that people start to make noise about it. So this is this is the situation that happen a lot actually in Malaysia nowadays. All right, the opposition to a certain development, not really because the development is not good, but because the management of visual changes is not have been properly managed. All right, so that is why we need to have some kind of mechanism on how to manage our visual environment better. Because once we manage our visual environment better, so the rest actually is quite, I'm not going to say easy to handle, but it's going to be less uh, opposition to it. All right. So I think Dr. Mus, I think that is my introduction for the time being. All right. I will let Dr. Shun probably to say more about this.
Thank you, Dr. Swati, for the introductions, and probably we just can continue from what Dr. Swati mentioned just now. I think one of the things that I'll say probably trigger my interest on visual research is when we talk about visual as a resource by itself. So, like when we compare other type of resources that we have in this country, for example, like we have timber, we have water, we have minerals, for examples, and all these basically we have systems on how we should manage it. We have a framework on how we should do it, like how to assess the quality sort of things. So these are the things that probably I think one of the resource that is very fragile, very, very intangible. So, like you can call it intangible or cross hybrid between tangible or intangibles, because we talk about quality as well. But these are the things. This is something that we need to manage. Having the chance to I think probably like most of us have a chance to visit all these
Yeah.
countries out of Malaysia, and probably like in Europe or in America, for examples. And sometimes we tend to question that how they manage such a scene, how they manage such an area, such a huge area. uh, and we can see that certain level of consistency, there's a sense of harmony, things like that. So how it was done. So so when I got the opportunity to get involved in one of the project when I was in the States, I think it gave me an eye opening, like this visual need to be managed properly. It is very fragile, and I think this is what I think we need to do here in Malaysia, because I think at this point of time, probably we don't have like a real uh, framework or approach or methodology on how we should approach it. So I think me and Dr. Sohadi, since we graduated from the same universities, same supervisors, I think we have the same. I think I think probably like the paradigms on how visual should be managed. So I think this is what we want to do, and probably I think with the help of probably some other experts from other universities or other researchers, or probably like people who have interest, and probably like some of the students as well, will help us to understand more about this. I would say about this resource, visual as a resource, and then probably will help to manage our country better. I think that's all from me anyway.
All right, thank you, Dr. Shun. We talk about visual resources many times. This is before I'm going to pose you further question. Can you, Dr. Suhadi or Dr. Shun, elaborate a little bit more on what is visual resources actually? What does it entail? And then maybe slowly you go into management. What are the aspects of management for these visual resources? Does it include rehabilitation, protection, conservation, things like that? Can you elaborate on that, one of you?
Swadi
Maybe
dulu
Dr.
lah.
Sadi first. Dr. Sadi
Okay,
first.
Dr. Swadi dulu. Kita bagi yang senior dulu.
Dr. Sadi, are you okay?
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me? All right. So,
Yeah.
visual resources actually is the resources that we can see, and most of the time, is simple term, is the landscape that we see every day, the landscape that we see around us, and when you talk about the landscape, and then we need to go back to the definition of the landscape itself. So the landscape itself, I think many of you know about it, is the thing that we see. It's called the landscape. So basically, whatever we see around us actually is our visual resources. So that is one thing. But the next question is that what type of visual resources that we want to manage? So that is another thing. So when we're talking about the visual resource management, it can be a natural area, it can be the built area, all right? It can be uh, a waterfront, it can be the hillside, it can be the farmland. So depends on the visual resources, the visual quality of that particular resources, and how important it is to the public uh, to appreciate it, and how much actually is important for the countries, for the certain economic sectors, for example, the tourism. So, so this is the question that we need to ask, we need to pose to ourselves, how to manage the visual resource manage with our visual resources. So, visual resources is quite big. The definition of visual resources itself is quite big, and if we, as I said earlier, is encompass everything that we see around us every day. But the question is, what type of visual resources that we want to manage, and why we want to manage it. So that is what when I introduce, when I give the some kind of the brief before this, uh, I'm talking about the landscape changes. So because we are tend to be very familiar with surrounding environment, so that is why one of the things that we need to manage actually is the landscape changes, because the changes toward the existing visual resources actually will affect our our mood, our feelings, our our joy and everything, the cognition part, okay, the behavioral part and everything. So there is a visual resource, and why we need to manage visual resource properly, because the sudden change of our visual resource actually is not uh, really good. I think many of you probably familiar with the ideas about the stressful environment and landscape changes, and how actually the surrounding environment, if not been properly managed, is going to increase our stress level, and is going to affect our quality of life as well as our quality of work. So that is why we need to manage our visual resources better. And so, do I answer your question, Terus?
Yes, of course. Continue, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, uh, do we have the mechanism now? So, in terms of the mechanism, I can say that we have a lot of opportunity, but it have to be embedded in certain planning process, in certain management plan and so forth. For example, when we want to manage our future resources in relation to development, we have to see how it can be tied back to our rancangan struktur and rancangan tempatan. It is under Act 172, right? And then can it be embedded when we do our laporan cadangan pemajuan for our kebenaran merancang? can visual resource management be part and parcel of analysis that need to be done? So at this particular moment, I can say none of that exists, right? None of the process have been done. So similar to the rancangan structure and rancangan tempatan, alright? So this is the this is basically the master planning or the long-term planning of our spatial qualities of cities or whatever. But if visual resource is not been considered as one of the important aspect, when we do all this plan, all this development order or kebenaran merancang, then we are actually destroying our visual resources. Then it's going to give a lot of impact uh, to ourselves. So that is very important to understand. So if when I did LRT3 and I did also BRT Sunway, uh, and also not really MRT3, yes, MRT3 at certain extent, we involve in the visual resource management at the start of the feasibility studies. When we work together with the planners and engineers to understand which actually the line or the alignment that really give the minimum impact to the visual resources. So that is how actually it been done, I think, and I hope then it will trigger toward this KM and it will trigger toward the building plan submission. So, and that is why myself and Dr. Samsul, we are involved in the environmental impact assessment as well. And the scope that we're looking for actually is the visual quality assessment. We hope that by having the visual quality assessment or visual impact assessment in the EIA report, somehow we minimize the visual impact to the environment when the development happen. So there is somehow the briefing on how important is visual resource management and how it can be fit into this the bigger framework on how we are doing things. Okay.
Okay, I think that's the whole lot of things that Dr. Suhadi has talked about. I think a lot of us, when you talk about landscape change, it is very interesting. I think not long ago, I read a study that says that, you know, when we had our Bosnian refugees in Malaysia, and the study says that quite a number of them, quite a large number of them, faces depression, stress, and so on, basically because the environment changes from the one that they had in Europe to the one that is in tropical areas. So not necessarily that all changes are negative. Maybe perhaps some changes are positive. Maybe you could elaborate on that. What kind of changes that is negative, that are negative, and what kind of changes that is all right, you know? Dr. Shun, perhaps?
Wow, yang ni dah macam Viva punya soalan.
No, perhaps you want to go into area of perception or preference just a little bit, you know?
Well, I think probably like when we talk about positive and negative changes to the visuals, definitely we always talk about how we as a human, we you know, how we I would say interject or how we introduce any type of interventions in the area. So when we place an intervention, for example, when we talk about development, say,
Mhm.
so that can bring a negative impact or positive impact. Am I right? So that is something that we should be very careful with. So for me, when we talk about you know, these negative and positive interventions or visual changes, it has to be, you know, it has to be aligned with what are the objective of uh, working on that particular visual resource management. So for examples, like when we talk about you know, we have a nice place, for example, scenic point, for instance, and we want to bring that enjoyment to the people. We want to bring excitement to the people. So we intervene into that particular natural area. So the thing is, uh, we are making change. Am I right? Like we are making change. So whether that change will bring positive or negative impact of visual experience to the people, or changes like bring negative impact to the landscape by itself. So I think these are the things that we have to be very careful, because towards the end, as a human being, when we talk about visual changes, uh, we have to understand that this can be either introduced by human, and also can also be triggered by nature by itself. Like for example, like landslides. So a landslide can trigger negative impact towards the visual. So at the same time, uh, I don't know, like towards the end, probably like when we have glaciers, for example. So it's not a landslide, but you give like a nice view to the whole landscape. So I
Yeah.
think that's how it is. Like we have to be very careful, and definitely when we talk about changes, we need to look at what are the objectives that we want to bring into the area.
I think Dr. Bose, uh, when we're talking about the visual quality and landscape changes, I think I think it's not been really practiced in Malaysia. But I think the project that have been done by Dr. Samsos and my supervisor, Professor Pratik Miller in Virginia Polytechnic, I think it's a very good example on how actually we want to manage the changes in the landscape areas, and how actually this lake, the recreational area, Clayton Lake, and how actually have been made, their visual quality have been managed for the sake of recreational activities. And I think Dr. Mus, with your permission, probably Dr. Samson want to share his slide regarding the what he has been what he has done in Virginia regarding the Clayton Lake management. Can we have it, Dr. Mus?
But before that, maybe Dr. Shun or you go into the area of landscape assessment first. Just give us a very brief
Oh,
background of all the processes that is involved in landscape assessment, visual landscape assessment. Then only perhaps we can
okay.
go with an example.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Can we do
right.
that?
Yeah, sure. The landscape assessment is big. It's the big area, and when we do landscape assessment all the time, and it can be ecological, it can be behavioral, and it can be visual as well. And as Dr. Mus pointed out, and actually uh, uh, how we do the visual assessment, right? Visual landscape assessment. So basically, the first thing that we need to do is not about understanding which one actually the beautiful and which one actually is nice. Yeah, in a certain extent it is. But first of all, we have to identify the landscape character itself. What the landscape character that we have, and then after that we have to make the assessment how beautiful or what is the visual quality of that particular landscape character that we already identified. And there is certain process there. All right, the identification of landscape character itself is quite a complex process, I can say. And then the identification or the visual quality of the landscape character itself also involves certain level of or layer of processes. And after that, after we understand the visual quality of the landscape character, we then, if we want to understand just the visual quality of the landscape area, is the project is done. All right, meaning that we can understand this landscape character have certain value and so forth. But if we want to understand the impact, we have to go for the landscape sensitivity. because we want to understand if this particular landscape area have visual quality level 5, meaning that the highest level of the visual quality that we can have. The next question that we need to ask is, does this particular landscape area or character that have 5 uh, point of visual quality actually sensitive? All right. Some of the areas that we have actually might have very high visual quality, but not sensitive. All right. But the area that have the sensitivity, this is the one that we need to manage the impact. All right. So that is very important. And when we looking into the sensitivity, we also have to, and there are many factors involved. First, in terms of how many people actually you looking into it, can look into it, using it, and the absorption capacity, all right, the visual absorption capacity, and all this kind of stuff need to be understood before we can come out with the ideas how sensitive actually the landscape areas, right? So, and surprisingly, many people feel that uh, understanding the visual quality is actually qualitative in nature. But my experience with Dr. Samsul, and this is a challenge, when we do the visual impact assessment or visual quality assessment, somehow we need to turn or to change uh, the visual quality, the qualitative visual quality into quantitative. All right. So because this is very important. One, we are dealing a lot with the land manager and engineers that only deal with numbers. Right. One. Number two, uh, we never got into this stage yet, but I believe in the future it will be. Uh, Most probably, the decision of the visual resource manager or the consultant might be contested in court in the future. So how are you going to establish the facts that the visual quality actually high? So we need to have certain numbers of certain quantitative backup to help us to defend ourselves in the court. So this is something that happening actually in the United States, Canada, and European country, in which the visual resource consultant or the landscape architect consultant that involved in the visual quality management have been testified in the court why actually you are putting up these numbers or this visual quality level to these particular landscape areas. So you need to have a strong justification why it is. Because just imagine if you have the land, let's say 100 acres, and you are aiming for the development, and suddenly the visual resource manager or the assessor come out and say this area have 5, the visual quality level is 5, and it is sensitive and cannot be developed. So you may end up in the court to say or to defend or to justify why it need to be protected, to be conserved or rehabilitated or whatsoever. So this is something that I think need to be understood lah. So I think that is Dr. Mus, the somehow little bit of process about how we doing the visual quality assessment, and of course the assessment how we assess the landscape quality of that particular area is based on the certain theoretical theories lah. We're using the preference theories, we're using Bowling and Ford, we're using prospect refuge, and all this theory actually come very handy when we doing all this assessment. All right.
Okay.
So I think that is my explanation about the process lah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I think our talk this afternoon is getting more serious and mind-boggling. But perhaps it'd be easier for our audience that you could bring us to a real-life case study. Perhaps we would like to do that, Dr. Shun.
Yes, let me share you with some of the case study that we have previously. Okay, on. Okay. So just want to this is can be seen by you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good.
I think perhaps you want to change to the full slide.
Yeah, okay, good. So, but anyway, I will say that this is actually one of the examples that one of the project that we did previously when we were in the States, and we have, I think, quite a numbers of projects that we have done it here, but I think probably because of some of the, I would say, legal issues, we are yet to think we choose not to show it for the time being. But anyway, this is one of the examples that probably will help you guys to understand more on how we approach visual resource assessment study, or how we approach visual quality or visual impact. So I think probably like everybody's, like when we talk about, changes in our environments, we can see that typical news will highlight that, it changed the beauty, it changed the experience, and like people will get angry with all these negative changes. So these are something that we need to understand, like why this happened and how this can be avoided. Okay, and the same thing goes here. Like when we look at the quarries, like we have such a open view, horizontal plane. We can see the whole skylines of the mountains, but then you can see cut off from the hillside of the hills, and and it exposed such I would say probably scars to the hills. So this is probably like will bring negative impact not only to the visual, but we have to understand that it also bring negative impact to the industry. Why? Because people, when they view this as a threat. They view this as the industry as a threat to the environment. So these are the things like with visual resource management. Uh, I think there are kind of managing the impact. How we can still allow the industry to happen, but in such a way that it doesn't trigger people anger, and it doesn't trigger people, negative perceptions. All right. So just a little bit, I would say highlights on why it is important. Definitely, when we talk about visual resource assessment, we talk about doing the inventory. We talk about identifying the landscape character. We talk about visual inventory. We talk about doing the assessment for visual quality, and we also talk about assessment of visual sensitivity, as mentioned by Dr. Swadi just now. And then from there, we can see like what is the impact, what is the predictions that we can have. And this is actually depends on what is the objective, as I mentioned to you earlier. Like if we just want to know what are the quality of the existing landscape or existing spaces or areas in our interest, so we stop at visual quality. But normally, if we want to see what are the impacts, then we start working on visual sensitivity. All right. And then definitely by understanding this impact, we can provide what we call as a mitigations. It can be either physical mitigations and also social mitigations. Like when you know how to mitigate visually, people respond, either it is positive or negative, can be, I would say, can be easier to be managed. And definitely, once you have all this, it depends. As I mentioned to you just now, it depends on the objective. We can monitor, we can update if there are changes based on whatever recommendations or impact that we suggested or we identified. So these are basically the process, and the process is something that I would say have been modified from I would say visual resource management provided by Land of Bureau Management in the US, and also scenery management system by US Forest Service. So we use these two systems, and I think part and parcels uh, our supervisors, our mentor, Dr. Patrick Miller, for example, he tried to simplify the process. And basically, this is the process that has been simplified. And me and Dr. Suhadi, we try to strengthen the process a little bit more by adding, I would say, some of the criteria that can be used while working on this visual resource inventory, or visual impact management or visual impact assessment. So I think the most important thing is to see or to identify where is actually the scene area. Like, for example, like when we look at one area, so we need to have a certain point or line that we can see the area. So this is what we call a scene area analysis. All right. Or it can be either something like we buffer from a certain line to get the distance from point of view that we are interested with. So when we work on this scene area analysis, then we're gonna have some kind of like a view sheds. Okay, this is the view sheds. So if you look at all the red colors, these are all the view sheds. The center line, if you look at the lake and the center line, the red line, the center of the lake is basically what we call as the route, the boating route, which is like people when they use the lake, they will use that center line to experience the lake. And from that center line, they're gonna see whatever that is actually red in color. Okay. So, and then we buffer the distance, like based on whether it is foreground views or middle ground views or views. And then once we have this scene area analysis, our job is basically to identify what is the landscape character. Okay. So landscape character basically, we try to understand elements and features that, make that landscape distinct from one to another. So they share same stimuli, they share same characteristics. So how we understand this, or how we do it, we use 3 different set of information, which is landform, land cover, and also land use. And basically, these are the information. I don't have the land use with me right now, but basically use the elevations as to understand the landform, and we have the land cover where we have to digitize back, or we have to extract the information from aerial photography, and and trying to understand what are actually the land cover that we have. And then at the same time, by using the land use, we overlay all this, and then from there we can come up with what we call as a landscape character. So this landscape character become a distinctive unit, like what we call as a management unit. Whatever happened after this, it is actually based on this unit. So it might be the same unit. For examples, like if you look at here, like for example, like flat settlement. So it can be like one unit, like it share the same characteristics. Okay? But it share the same character. So when we propose a management or mitigation measures or management plan for this particular area, so we can easily identify based on this what we call as a visual management unit. And then from that visual management unit, we're going to look at the aesthetical part of it, which is the quality. And this is what Dr. Swadi mentioned just now about the scoring criteria. And this is basically based on certain, I would say, theories that we use. For example, like information processing theories by Kaplan's, or I would say, by some others, I would say researchers as well. So the scoring criteria is basically like visual characteristics, landscape features, and man-made features. So we need to understand how it works in terms of the compositions, things like that. All right. And then from there, we're going to give the criteria, because we have like a rubrics that actually help us to give the scoring. And then the third stage, which this is actually the third stage, and then from there we're gonna get as a visual quality map. So these are based on what we call as a visual management unit just now. So as we can see, like certain areas has high, certain areas is like moderate low. So these are the things that will help us to understand the potential of the area, as well as the importance of the area in the management plan later. And then from there we have visual sensitivity, as I mentioned to you just now. Visual sensitivity, normally we conduct this if we need to work on, or typically when we work on visual impact assessment. So visual impact assessment, we need to get further understandings in terms of like what we have discussed just now, like visual absorption capacity, talk about how much that particular landscape character can accept changes. For examples, like if we talk about like urban area, okay, when we talk about urban area and we talk about trying to put, for example, elevated structures, such as, for instance, for transportation network. So absorption capacity will be very high because, you know, when we talk about a structure, urban structures, in addition to urban structures, so the absorption capacity is actually high, meaning that the urban landscape can absorb that changes. But if we talk about, you know, like we have a forest area and we need to build, you know, a bridge, for example. So a bridge is a human structures and a forest is a natural area. So when we talk about these situations, the absorption capacity is very, very low because the forest, you know, to absorb that change, having that bridge into that particular landscape is very, very very low because, you know, it gives that dramatic change to the whole experience of the area. So these are the things that we have to, you know, look into in order for us to understand what are the visual sensitivity. Like we have like viewers activities and also viewers volume. Like viewers volume, for example, like if that area is located very, very close to you know, like high density housings or very, very high volume of users, like traffic users, so it will increase that sensitivity of that particular view or particular landscape. So these are like example of visual sensitivity analysis that we did last time, and kind of like a visualization, because like when you have all these maps, you need to visualize it. So I think one of the best thing about having a Google Earth, it helps us to see or to verify or to validate what are the results, and then from there we can see, you know, if we have to make changes on the result that we have. So we can do cross checks. And in fact, when we have all these overlay on Google Earth, for example, the, the, the stakeholders, for example, the people affected by this management plan, they feel very much comfortable because they can see it. They can navigate the informations and try to understand what are the recommendations given to them. Okay. And these are kind of impact metrics, like trying to understand if the visual quality is high and the visual sensitivity is high. So we can see that, you know, that impact will be high. So if that visual quality is low and visual sensitivity is low, so the impact, you know, the impact basically will be low. So these are the things that we can, this is not like, I would say, you know, like you cast it on the stone, you know, you can't change it. This is actually depends. If you really, really want to have a high quality area based on, you know, your study, so you can increase that level of sensitivity or like level of metrics that we have here. And these are kind of like what we call as mitigation measures. This is just only text, but in addition to this, we also need to provide, for examples like sketches or I would say computer visualizations in order to help people to visualize, you know, what are the interventions or what are the specific measures need to be taken for such I would say recommendations. Okay. All right, so these are an examples like how we use Sketch to give, I would say, recommendations on how things should be done. Like for instance, like you should not do certain type of cuttings, you should hide certain buildings, things like that, or you should, for example, use certain type of colors, certain, I would say, materials. So these are the things in order for us to maintain that level of harmony or consistencies on, you know, in order to manage that visual, I would say visual changes. So the recommendation will be delivered through all these mitigation measures. And I think I just want to highlight some of the challenges that we have here. one of the thing is definitely we talk about the legal framework to recognize visual as a resource. So this is something that we are, because these are still new, particularly here in Malaysia. But I think in most of the Western countries, they have it recognized because they have it in their legal system already. So this is something that we need to work on in order for us to, protect and manage our visual area. And standardized terminologies, sometimes we use scenery, sometimes we use visual, sometimes we use aesthetic, things like that keep on changing. So sometimes we need to make sure that all these standards need to be, be cleared. Visual experts, like we have lack of trained experts. And then, like how we want to do the measurements, whether, we're going to do it like based on objectivist or subjectivist approach. So this is a highly methodological. So we have to go deeper on this discussion later, but I think we're not going to do that. Awareness and exposures and understandings, probably like this, probably is something that we need to really put on to the people, to the NGOs, to the scientific communities, so they can understand more the importance of, protecting and managing our visual resource. And definitely we talk about doing the analysis or doing the studies. It does involve technical variations of evaluation criteria, scoring, and software and hardware as well. So probably these are kind of like the challenges that we are facing. But we are looking forward to have more people, working with us and collaborating in order for us to promote these, I would say, ideas. I think that's all from me. So just gonna stop the sharings. So probably we can continue back with the discussions. I hope that helps, to elaborate or to explain a little bit on how we do it in terms of visual resource management or assessment. So probably it will, trigger some of your interest to learn more about it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samsul. I see that visual resource management, visual assessment, they have a very strong theoretical foundation, scientific foundation to support. And the process is very systematic. And I think a lot of countries has already done this, New Zealand, EU countries, and but even in Malaysia, there's some awareness and some, like both of you have been involved in some of the project where they invited you as consultant to do the assessment. But how do you think that this thing can be made more, create more awareness towards perhaps one day that it will become mandatory, landscape assessment, visual resource management become mandatory, because we hate, I believe all of you agree, we hate losing certain places, whether beautiful or not, but has a high attachment for us as a citizen of the country. Before I throw open the Q&A, perhaps you and Dr. Sohadi want to say just a little bit on this. How do we want to go about getting more organization, agencies, government agencies perhaps to be more involved, willing to do it in their projects?
I think personally, I believe that, for example, like our national landscape departments, they have started working on, I think landscape assessment or something.
Landscape
Correct
character.
me, Dr. Sorry, landscape character assessment, yes.
Yeah.
So I think that is, I would say, a good effort, a good starting point on how we can start working on promoting or protecting our visual resource. I think we should applaud that. But probably we can get, I would say, definitely in terms of the methodological part of it, I think that there will be some kind of discussion still, because even right now in the Western countries, in America, for example, they are still like trying to even like they have done it for almost like 30 or 40 years, but they are still trying to I would say balance it, trying to find the best way on how they can do it better. So I think in our situations right now, I think this is the best time, because we are starting to work on it. I think from the researchers' point of view, and also from the I think from the government perspective. So I think this is a time for us to to I would say probably work together closer to bring to bring this effort into a more serious level nationally. I believe that will happen soon, inshallah.
Dr. Swati, you want to add anything?
I think to to make sure that our visual resource is well protected and considered in development. I think first we have to understand the the policy and the legal framework of how we are doing things. Uh, we have to the project that Dr. Samsul showed to us actually is Crater Lake. The land actually have been leased to a company, I think AEP, American Power Company, something like that.
The American Power Company.
American Power Company. This is the company that provide electricity to the Southwest Virginia, and then Crater Lake is the result of the dam that have been built to get the power supply. So the government asked them to manage the dam, the lake, for the recreational and everything. So in order for them to renew the license, they have to submit a report every 5 years or 10 years, something like that, to ensure how they're going to manage the land for recreational activities. And one of the things that they have to show is how they manage the visual quality. So basically, if you look into this, actually it goes to the land management. And when we're talking about the land management, we have to understand the punca kuasa lah, who actually hold the power over the land. So if we look into the Malaysian scenario, so we have to understand who actually control the land of our resources. For example, uh, the forest area, they have what they call they need to have what they call forest management plan. They need to have the forest management plan. It needs to be renewed every several years. So what we need to do actually is, I think forest management plan, probably I'm not sure, but I have to check. It's a statutory document, but meaning that they have to do it. So, but what we need to do actually is to go and see the forest department and ask them actually to include visual quality management inside the report. All right. So when it become one of the sectors that need to be included in the report, so we can manage our forest visually better. So same goes to the rivers. All right. I believe that GPS probably have their own master planning for the riverfront or our rivers everywhere in the world, or the lembangan sungai or the river valley, something like that. So one of the things that we need to ask them actually is to pro- uh, to to do the visual impact assessment. Same goes to National Landscape Department with all the parks and open spaces that we have all over the country, especially the big park. So like Taman Awam Persekutuan Bukit Kiara. So probably there is a need to do the visual impact assessment or the visual management plan for every 5 years to make sure that the visual quality is protected, is conserved properly, right? So and then it goes to the behavioral analysis and so forth. So meaning that is part and parcels of the landscape management plan. So and talking about the power line, Dr. Samsul talked about this. Uh, what is the lab in Chicago, Dr. Shuk? Tarragon, what?
Argon Laboratory.
Oregon. Oregon.
Argon Laboratory.
Okay, Harga Laboratory in Chicago, actually, they are very interested to see how actually the infrastructure, how the impact of the infrastructure to the visual qualities. And if you look into the Malaysian context, when we have a lot of water dam for electricity, dam for water supply, and so forth, and the TNB actually is leasing the land from the government. So actually, the government should impose the same mandatory requirement to the TNB that if you want to manage the lake, you need to come on a visual management plan. So, so it's very important. So we lot of lake. We have for the electricity that for Temenggong Dam, the one that we have in
Belum.
Cameron Highland. All right. So all these things actually need to have visual management plan. Uh, and also the water dam done by Jabatan Makanan Air, JPS, and so forth. So this area actually become recreational area. For example, the Bukit Mentajam Lake dam, right, is owned by the Jabatan Makanan Air, and part of that area actually is recreational area. So they have to manage that particular area for visual quality, all right, to ensure that the people actually the rakyat lah, all right, get the best of it. All right. So it can become the proud of the state and of the countries. And we also need to understand by managing the visual resource actually is somehow related to our economic well-being because the tourism parts of it. All right. When tourists come, actually, we are talking about the monies and then we're talking about the economic well-being. So we can talk a lot about why we need to do the visual impact assessment, visual quality management, and so forth. But I think as what Dr. Mus asked, as what we need to do next, actually, we need to knock the door of many agencies in Malaysia and let them know the importance of visual quality management and why they need it. All right. I think in the Malaysian context, we are at the development mode. We are not really in the mode where we look our infrastructure, something that can be turned into something nice, something that beneficial more than the need of the infrastructure itself. For example, the the lake for the electricity, they just look into the how actually the lake and the dam can produce electricity, but not the other values. For example, the recreationals, the biodiversities, the therapeutic part of it, and so forth. So this is something that need to be further explained to them lah. So I hope that if there is any government agency personnel in this particular forum, please take note on that lah. All right. So I think that is my take for this, Dr. Mus.
All right, thank you very much. Now, one last question from me. I think we could just give a very brief response before I open up to the audience to ask any question. Well, okay. Only two of you in the whole country that are trained to do this. Are there more? And is there possibility of people to get a diploma or a certificate, or even at a higher level, a master and doctoral degree in this particular area? So, is there opportunities for them to do that? Maybe at your place?
I think I answered the first question. First question, do we the only 2% doing this? No, no. As far as I know that in for the Jabatan Alam Sekitar under EIA, there are a few, I think more than 10 probably, they are doing visual quality assessment. But as far as I know, only one landscape architect actually registered with the Department of Environment as the visual quality assessment consultant, which is proudly to say our UPM graduates, Mr. Uling Majoy. But what I'm saying is that it is possible for all of you to become a visual quality consultant, but you need to have a proper training lah, to know it. And I can say that who can do the visual quality impact assessment? Of course, the landscape architect can do. Of course, the planner can do. And geographer can always say they can do. In the engineers and then the architects, all these professions actually eligible to do the visual quality impact assessment. But the question is that how they do it. If you go to the and if we go to the study on the professional understanding of the visual quality, there are differences among the profession. So, but I think that is the methodological question or issue that need to be solved, because at the end of the day, the any agencies, government agency that need to do the visual quality assessment need to know what actually they want from the exercise. Do they want to have the visual quality assessment, or do you want to understand the impact, or do you want to understand the sensitivity? So then the methodological must be clear, and then they will get what they want. So, so the answer for the first question that you asked, Dr. Moose, is that there are many person that say they can do it, and there are those registered with Jabatan Alam Sekitar to do the visual quality assessment. And I think if there is any one of you want to do the visual quality assessment, you can do, and you can register with Alam Sekitar, and they have the courses in EMAS, Environmental Management Institute, regarding these matters. So you can qualify as the yeah, a consultant. The second question is that can they learn from us? Of course they can. Okay, just I mean at this particular time, uh, there are opportunities maybe come in by taking up the Master of Landscape Architecture or Master of Sustainable Landscape Management, and or Master of Science or PhD related to the, and then the topic must be related to the visual quality impact assessment lah. So that is one thing. So that yeah, I can say that we welcome everyone to come and join us in UPM to study and to further explore anything related to visual impact assessment. So I just want to share, if I can, Dr. Moose, this is the one of the thing that our student actually, Dr. Samso and me, doing. I have to check where actually. Okay, this one. Okay, this is the student work with Dr. Samso and myself. So he tried to understand the seed that had been preferred in the Putrajaya Lake. So so by this is the preferred seed. They have certain numbers, certain scoring, and something like that. But okay, but this is the least preferred. But the most interesting, I think this is something that Dr. should bring back from United States after he graduated, actually, is to try to understand within the stimulus of the preferred scene, what actually the most preferred thing that people see. So by using the heat mapping analysis technique, we are able to understand from the preferred scene what actually the particular object that people really see in the scene. So actually, it's bring a lot of validity uh, to the previous result. So I think I just give it some ideas on if you come and study in UPM relating to visual quality. This is the thing that you're going to do lah, to understand the visual preferences, to understand the sensitivities, to understand the stimulus that really matters to us, okay, and then to understand cognitive uh, matters that actually that affect or influence the visual quality preferences. So I think that's my answer to your question, Dr. Moose. I know Dr. Shul probably want to say anything else.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, I think one of the things that in additions working with with some of the experience that we have here locally. In addition to that, we are also working with a group of researchers from Northern America. There's a group called Visual Resource Stewardship Groups, and this group basically a group of visual researchers from, I would say, from Canada and also America. So this group basically they have, I would say uh, conference. Like they have, I think this year will be their third conference on visual resource stewardships. and we are, I will say, in connection with them. So I think this is something that we would like to promote, and something that we want to show that uh, it's not that we just do it ourselves here, or we are not limiting ourselves here, but we are also putting the works at the international level with some of the studies. For example, like one of the students, they work on visual pollutions. So in addition to visual quality or visual sensitivity, we also look into uh, types of visual pollutions, like how much people can actually absorb visual pollutions from the scene. So we want to understand that as well. Like so I think probably you mentioned just now about the positive and negative. So the positive probably like we talk about visual quality, but the negative side probably we are talking about visual pollution in order for us to understand how it will impact the quality. So so these are the things that we are working on. And for me myself, I have like 2 PhD students right now at LAX who are working on visual pollutions, and we are working on visual quality on urban forests. So hopefully they can definitely finish as soon as possible, doing great jobs right now. So definitely we are very much interested to have more people coming in. So
Yeah, I think
anyway,
Yeah, I think of course we are not trying to limit ourselves in the Malaysian context alone. I think Dr. Shun have very good connection with the American counterparts over there, and for some reason he managed to know all these big names for visual quality research like Richard Smarden or all this person. I myself never see them, but he managed to see them. So, but I mean, in the Asian context, we know that for the fact that some of the universities in Japan, like Kyoto universities, have a strong visual research. They are, if in United States or in Europe, the visual quality research mostly taken up by the built environment profession, but in Japan, it is more towards the psychology department. So by knowing them, actually, we know more about the cognitive function of our brain in terms of assessing visual quality. All right. So in terms of research, don't be surprised that we are using we are planning to use some kind of very sophisticated machine to understand how actually our brain function when they see certain visual quality, to understand which part of your brain actually blipping or functioning when you see certain visual stimulus. For example, if you see the water, maybe your frontal cortex or frontal cortex on the front side, on the right side actually is blipping. All right, and how actually is transmit uh, into your I forget the name of this hypothalamus in the middle of the brain and sent to your central nervous system before it goes to your peripheral nervous system. So I don't want to go that. All right.
Okay.
You can PM to P me if you want to know further about that scientific thing. But anyway, that is what we try to do in universities, and then all these knowledge that we have, we try to improve our built environment better, not only in terms of the development, but also in terms of the natural resources, in terms of the conservation, rehabilitation. And I see that Dr. Atiyah is also one of the participants this afternoon. Don't worry, Dr. Atiyah, cultural side is also our concern. And
Yeah.
of course, the changes to the cultural side is very much concern to us. Uh,
Correct.
and how actually the changes towards the visual quality of the countryside actually will
Mhm.
affect a lot of us, all right?
Yes.
Because the this tangible heritage quality is very much dear to us, and we don't want it to disappear from our life. So it's very
Mhm.
important to protect them as well. Okay, Dr. Mus?
Okay.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank you, Dr. Swati.
As a moderator, I'm very nervous now looking at the clock. It's already past, it's 4:20 now. And I, I, still have to open the question for the audience. I'm wondering whether if they have further question, they could contact Dr. Suhadi and Dr. Samsul. and how they can contact both of you. And for those that can stay a little bit longer, perhaps you can pose your questions to our two speakers. How about that? I'm not very, this is the first time I have to admit using Webex, and I don't know how to respond to the chat that is popping up, but I see that most of the questions is about how to get the insert rather than on the topic. If we have a question, I think it can just pop up direct. Can they do that?
Yeah,
Go into the chat.
I think since those who are in the last session, I just unmute your mic and then just ask us the question.
Great.
And then for those who are following us in Facebook, maybe I think there is an officer that are picking up the question. They will send it to Dr. Muslah to ask it on behalf of them.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay, so please, anybody who has a burning question to ask, until 4:30, we stay until 4:30. Then say it out right now. Post a question right now. Anybody?
Okay, Dr. Mus, let me start. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Sure, Dr. Atia, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. All right, so good to see Dr. Mus again, one of our father in this landscape architecture industry. Looking at his smiles this afternoon is so releasing, and I'm so happy to see you again, Dr. Mus, definitely.
You're welcome. I couldn't see you. You didn't post a video there, for some
Yeah,
reason, huh?
I didn't post my video here. So congratulations to Dr. Shun and also Dr. Swardi for a very thoughtful discussion this afternoon. So I have most of my, I believe all of my cultural landscape students attending this webinar to understand how to relate a visual quality assessment with cultural landscape. So I'm very glad to see Dr. Suhardi has somehow knew what do I have pondering in my mind to talk about how to maintain or how to preserve the visual quality, not only in for the cultural landscape in rural area, but also in the urban center, because we still have cultural landscape in urban center. So Dr. Swardi and Dr. Shun, if you would mind to share with all of us here how to make sure that the visual quality assessment is one of the tools that is compulsory to be used in cultural landscape studies. In what angle should we add on to the analysis process that what Dr. Shun has shown just now? And what would be the impact before and after, if we use this visual quality assessment as a tools for cultural landscape studies? That's my question. Thank you.
Dr. Sadi or Dr. Shun, would you like to respond briefly?
Saya bagi Dr. Shun jawab lah.
Well,
Dr. Shun?
thank you, Dr. Atia, for the questions. I think it's very, when you talk about doing this cultural study and how it can be integrated, visual quality, for example, visual quality assessment. I think there's no issue at all. Probably I will say that it can be one of the inserts. It just only, I think one thing that probably like my concern is probably going to take definitely it will prolong definitely the study, the whole cultural study. But I'm not saying that it's not going to be possible. Definitely it's going to be possible, because I think one of the criteria that we have for visual quality assessment is we are looking at man-made elements, for example, like cultural elements. It can be, the heritage elements. That is actually part and parcels of the criteria that we use to I would say to evaluate the scoring. So yes, definitely is highly related. Really possible to integrate visual quality as part of the study. The thing is, one of the things that I think will be very interesting to talk about is because I think probably like most of the students, when they talk about visual, they talk, whether the visual is good, not bad, or whatsoever. But when we look at the process, the process or the systematic process that we have to do while working on this visual quality or visual impact study, it's gonna, as I mentioned earlier, it's gonna be a little bit more tedious, but I believe it will definitely contribute much towards the understanding of the, I would say, cultural heritage of the area. So, yep. Yeah, the same thing goes like when we talk about a forest management plan. Like forest management plan, right? I think we are now working with some of the team, with forestry, with faculty of forestry, working on some of their management plan as well, carrying capacity study, and we also have visual, I would say, visual quality study as part of carrying capacity study. So it is possible. Uh, but the thing is, the depth of the study can be negotiated because it goes back to what are the objective that we want to achieve for that particular cultural landscape study. I think that's my answer anyway. Thank you.
I think, if I may add, Dr. Mus, for the Dr.
Sure.
Atia question, actually is the for the cultural landscape resources. Of course, visual quality assessment method can be done, right? But we also have to understand the skills of the site involved lah. So if you are talking about the whole badak typing, for example, then definitely the visual resource management method that we use can be used. But if you are talking about the small scale, for example, the gardens, the historical garden and so forth, maybe there is another way to do it lah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you're talking about the big scale cultural area, okay,
Mm-hmm.
for example, as I said, the Taiping, Lake Gardens, or Taiping City itself, or
Mm-hmm.
Georgetown, or these Malacca. So definitely we can use that our method, I can say. All right, but the most important thing for the cultural landscape and heritage, actually, we don't have any systematic method yet or kaedah
Mm-hmm.
to assess cultural and heritage landscape at Jabatan Warisan level.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can propose something to them to develop the methodology to assess the cultural and heritage landscape, then it will be great because this is the thing that can be used systematically by them, and it have a lot of merit. So and further, if the buildings, heritage building, the old building or the historical building, you need the heritage architect to do it. The same thing goes actually for the landscape architects. We
Yeah.
maybe at one point we can have certification for the landscape architect who want to do heritage and cultural landscape works. I
Mm.
think, but we have to work in tandem lah dengan Jabatan Warisan or Jabatan Lanskap Negara, whatsoever, who
Yeah.
are actually own the process.
Correct, yeah. And
Right.
Dr. Sardi, insyaAllah, I'll take up to Jabatan Warisan on to combine this visual quality assessment with cultural landscape assessment for Malaysia. InsyaAllah, I'll do that.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I have a
Thanks.
question here on the chat. Sorry, Dr. Atia. I think I have to
Yeah,
give
please, yes. Mm-hmm.
opportunity to Nurizan Mama Akhir.
Others?
Are you still around, Nurizan? Can you ask directly to both our speakers? I read your question here.
Yeah.
Yeah, can
Yeah.
you do that?
Yes,
Walau
Prof.
dalam bahasa Melayu pun it's okay, it's fine.
Boleh. Okay. Okay. Assalamualaikum to
Salam.
speaker to panels. Okay. Actually, I just like to ask about kadang-kadang bila kita buat survey, mostly bila kita buat survey on visual preferences or perception kan, selalunya akan ada perbezaan in term of orang kata apa, the expert and the public perception lah kan. So actually how do we handle it actually to merge what a public want or what a public perception in
And
order to
expert.
design or make a decision on in planning process.
Interesting question. Yes.
Okay. Okay, I think it's a classic finding lah. It's a classic finding for the visual studies. When people who have certain background, especially in design, they have different perception in compare or preference in compare to the layman, all right? And then the differences is significant. So it show that the way we look to the object is different based on our knowledge, right? It has been found over and over and over again. Right? The question that you have here, how you want to merge, right? So, how we want to merge? Okay, this is the fundamental question that still need to be further explored. And I just have a discussion with Dr. Shun, Dr. Samsul last week on how actually to understand certain methodology on how to deal of these differences, all right, at the research level, all right, because we are looking into the objective assessment versus subjective assessment, all right. That is the in term of the research part, right. In term of the application part, you're talking about the planning on how you want to use it in planning, right. The question is that as a planners or landscape architect or what or whatever lah, all right, who are doing the planning, all right. So we have to ask, when you do the planning, this this level, the apply part actually is the application. It's a not it's not the research. It's the application of the knowledge. So you have to ask at the beginning of your project, which paradigm that you want to use. You want to use expert paradigm or you want to use public paradigm. All right. So, uh, so this is something that the project proponent have to really understand. Okay. You want your project actually reflects the opinion of the expert, or is it going to reflect the opinion of the public? And which one actually the most important for your project? If the project actually in the public spaces, do you think that the professional view matters? Okay. And if you are talking about the private spaces, okay, which one actually matters? All right. So this is need to be understood lah. All right. By the project proponent, which paradigm that you really want to use. So, but if you ask me at the planning level, because you are dealing mostly on the public spaces, if I'm the project proponent, I'm going for the public paradigm. Okay. So
Okay.
okay, because when you're looking into theoretically, the expert model, actually we are based on the Plato understanding of beauty. Okay, it's been almost 1,000 years old knowledge. And when talking about the people, we are based on Immanuel Kant, which only discovered in 1700, in which they put the understanding of beauty on the eyes of beholder. All right. So, but this actually the Immanuel Kant understanding of beauty and aesthetic actually have been challenged recently lah, when you're talking about the biological and so forth. But it still stands strong, all right, in terms of this, in terms of the application. So that is my answer. Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the audience? Maybe one more, last one.
Yeah, Norizat, probably I can suggest you, if you want to talk about this, probably you can talk with my PhD student, Riyadh. He's down there.
He's smiling down there, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so Riyadh is
sorry.
actually down
Prof
there.
siapa? Oh, Riyadh
Mundan,
Manda.
yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, so you can see him down there. So he's actually working on these fundamental questions about measurement paradigm. Like when we talk about assessments of aesthetic, for example. So what paradigm that you need to use, or what are the differences?
Okay.
What are advantages and disadvantages? Because we have to look at the whole structures of the research. For example, if you are working on a certain project and you have a very limited of time, So it is almost impossible to use what we call a subjectivist paradigm because you need to get most of the public to get involved with the study. So then you have to go with what we call as an objectivist paradigm, where you just work on, experts evaluation or assessment. So please, you just can talk with this topic with Rian. So he has done, I would say, a very interesting systematic review, which we plan to publish very soon, hopefully, inshallah. So yeah. Anyway,
Okay. Thank you
Yeah, I
very
think,
much, Dr.
yeah,
Sadi.
yeah,
Want to know some more? I
yeah,
have yeah. Say it out.
yeah. There's a question here from Siti Agma. You want to highlight that?
Siti Akmal. Yeah, where is Siti Akmal? Is still around? Oh, dia dah balik dah. I think it's about preference, right?
Ah, tak lah,
About
it's okay. I just give the answer for this lah. Is the art can contribute or define or contribute to the visual quality environment as a whole? Of course, art actually can contribute to the visual quality itself lah. But the artwork actually definitely can enhance the visual quality of the particular area, but the assessment or appraisal of the art object is different. So we don't want to be confused with the appraisal of the art object. All right, for example, the sculpture and everything, because they have their own methodology. Okay, and then but in terms of the contribution of the art object towards the overall visual quality of the environment, of course, it is very important. And whenever we do the visual impact assessment, whenever we interface or we somehow deal with the art object, we will advise our client accordingly lah, to ensure that the art object is taken care of. All right, because it contributes a lot to the visual environment as a whole. Right.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sadi. Okay, I'm going to allow only one more question. Whoever has a burning question that you cannot sleep tonight if you don't ask, please ask.
Hi, doctor.
Yes, who are you?
Yeah, I'm Zhu Qiuxia. I have a question here.
Okay, go ahead, Cynthia.
And, how to relate the visual quality assignment with the preservation of culture landscape. And thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Shun, Dr. Sahadi.
Sorry? Yeah.
I'm asking Dr. Suhadi or Dr. Shun, inviting them to answer your question. I believe you are Dr. Atia student.
Yeah, I'm in design and architecture. I'm a PhD student.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to respond, Dr. Shun? Are you clear about the questions?
yeah, I just can't really get the questions. What's the question just now?
Can you repeat slowly?
Yeah, it's in their chat room. This is how to relate the visual quality assessment with preservation of cultural landscape.
I think we already answered this question before, but I just repeat it again. It is possible to use the visual quality assessment for the micro scale if you want to preserve or to protect or to assess the visual quality of the heritage or cultural site. Definitely we can use our method. All right. I think there's no issue. But as for the micro site, okay, for the micro site, meaning for the small site, all right, this is something that need to be further developed. All right, I think we need to look into what actually the factors or the thing that you really want to see for the microsite. Microsite, for example, if you want to preserve or conserve a garden or a temple or a building. So how to do the assessment for these such scales projects, so or site, so it need to be looked differently. All right, so maybe not visual impact assessment as a whole, probably by using visual preference analysis technique. All right, and maybe by using architectural observation technique. All right, there are many ways to do it. All right, and but we have to understand the the suitability of your site with a particular method. Right?
Yeah.
That is my answer. But it is possible, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it has to be based on the
Thank
scale
you
of
for
the projects.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
It
scale.
has to be scale of the study area, I would say.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you
thank you
very much,
very
Dr.
much. Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much, everybody. And I would like to thank Dr. Sohadi, Associate Professor Dr. Sohadi and Dr. Shamsul for spending the time with us in the afternoon. And also to all of you who is here and where some of you have left, but some of you are very, very dedicated and interested in this particular topic. If you have further questions, you can contact directly Dr. Sohadi and Dr. Shamsul at the Department of Landscape Architecture, Faculty of Design and Architecture, UPM. And I'm sure one of them or both of them have their own website or emails, which you can get in UPM directory. Is that correct, right, Dr. Sohadi, Dr. Shun?
Yeah, you can always contact us via email. It is available in our faculty website. All right, for myself, it's quite easy, suhardi@upm.edu.my. So,
Sohadi at?
suhardi@upm.edu.my.
Okay, Dr. Shamsul?
Shamsul, SHAMSUL, Shamsul _AB at upm.edu.my. Should be very easy as well.
One more time, Dr. Shamsul?
Shamsul, SHAMSUL, .edu.
Underscore? No.
Sorry, Shamsul _AB at upm.edu.my.
Okay.
I send my email to the chat box, so anybody can just send me
Great.
email if they have any other questions
Great.
or whatsoever. That's what we just talk
So,
about.
yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have more questions, and I hope this pandemic will be over where you can go and visit physically to the two of them and perhaps visit their lab. I'm sure you'll be very impressed with the lab and what they are doing in the faculty. So with that, I would like to end this particular session, Wacana FRSB number 4. And once again, I would like to thank Dr. Sohadi and Dr. Samsul and all of you for joining us this afternoon. And with that, I would like to apologize for any shortcomings while being the moderator of this particular session. And to Muslims, I would like to wish all of you selamat berpuasa, Ramadan Mubarak, and hopefully to see you guys again in a similar webinar in the future. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Take care.
Thank you very much and take care. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.
Dan.
Tuan rumah kena keluar last sekali.
Congrats, Dr. Shun, Dr. Swadi, Dr. Mus. Thank you.
Ramai ni, banyak tengok ex-students pun ada. Hanim tadi ada. Hanim. Okay, anyway guys, thank you very much. Take care.
Dr. Mus dah keluar eh?
Dr. Mus dah keluar? Baru dah continue bersembang. Okay, alright, take care.
Okay, take care. Shun, kat mana Shun? Kau dekat fakulti ke kat rumah?
Tak, dekat rumah.
Okay, right. Okay guys, thank you very much. I reading first.
Dr. Sadi.
Yo.
I have you need to sign with me. GS 10. I already give you many months.
Why is it?
GS 10, the committee group.
Oh, isn't it?